Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Okay, great. So, then we would move on to public comment, and I know there's at least, well, we'll see what happens on Zoom, but there's at least one person in the audience who'd like to speak. So you're being recorded verbally anyway.
All right. I'm Paul Reese, village resident, and I just want to bring a couple things to your attention. Under the Freedom of Information Act, is this village board aware of any possible switching of serial numbers on the old vintage Cadillacs at the old Eddie Green Motel, especially the one that was reported stolen? And I'm just going to read this. February 10th, 2020, law firm called me, reported car stolen, 3 scrapped, like you said, 1 stolen. February 13th, 2020, reported it to the BF police. March 26th, 2020, called Vermont AG's office about a stolen car. June 30th, 2020, reported it stolen to Tracy Shriver's office. July 7th, 2020, sent a letter to the Vermont AG's office on the stolen car. November 30th, 2020, sent village president letter on stolen car. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention to look into this matter. It's pretty serious what I'm finding out through my investigation, but thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else with public comment? We still don't have that on, so I don't know if there's anybody out there
No, there's nobody with their hands raised. All set.
that you can see. Okay. All right, so then we'll get us to the manager's report.
So we finally decided to have winter in Vermont. So like most winters, now we're gonna have lots of winter in the next couple of weeks. So we have another storm scheduled for tomorrow into Thursday. So people that are already anxious about, are we going to haul snow? We're obviously not gonna haul until the Wednesday storm is done. We'll probably start hauling in the village on Thursday night and hopefully Saxon River on Friday.
Does
So
that include cleaning of the sidewalks and that sort of thing?
we'll definitely do the downtown, the square, and we'll probably end up coming back to do additional cleanup.
Okay, so when would that be, Thursday?
We're gonna start Thursday night overnight to do the square, and we'll probably then continue on into parts of Friday and parts of Saturday, so.
Okay.
And then we're scheduled, like I said, for a couple more little nuisance storms the following week, so. I guess the other thing for people, if you do park in one of our remote lots at some point, we'll have to get in touch with folks as we clear those lots and, keep an eye out as we have to try to clear things out and move piles of snow. So the next couple of weeks will be somewhat normal winter operation. In fact, people have to start just sort of gearing back up for winter, so.
And will you still be putting the sandwich boards out too?
Yes. Yep.
Anything else? No? All right, that will move us on to the agenda item number 1, which is VIFTA update and funding request. We have a letter in our package. And also, we do have representation to speak on the matter. Did you want to say anything? Either one of you? About the request or just?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've gotten a chance to read it yet.
It was in the packets. I didn't. distribute it
Yep.
over. Yes.
And I did really just want to mention the tax credits. That's the biggest reason why we're here. We started in '99. This year, we 20 the square for sprinkler and 5 brown block. So both of those upwards of 135,000, I think, in tax credits. So there'll be, most all of our buildings now will be up to code. And yes, that's their work and their investment, but thanks to the designated downtown,
Right.
we're able to offer that. And I found out just an hour ago that we are one of 37 states in the country that offer historic tax credits. So
I can ask you one question. Is this $2,500 per year request?
per year.
Okay, so
In addition,
I don't see that.
In addition to the 750,
7,500, yeah.
what? I don't understand what that just seems to be an awfully big request.
But we
You know, in
haven't
terms of
had,
the responsibility of this board, and our budgets, that, this is just a very large request. So and this is a budget issue for next year. It's not, and we haven't started our budget, so.
Right, I wanted to get right in.
Get ahead of that. So we currently contribute $7,500 a year, yes?
That's our
That's our annual
It's
contribution.
been a standard amount for a
Right.
few years now.
So if we raise, so the request is to increase it by 2,500.
Right.
Right, so it'll be 10. What is the town doing out of curiosity? Do they contribute to this?
Yes, they also got the same request.
And what
so
are what's
they-
their contribution point?
They're agreeing to the new number,
Okay, what is that number?
same,
So,
So it'll
okay,
be 10,000.
it's the same, okay.
yes.
And they did approve that, yes?
So, yes, it's in the current budget for
Okay.
the March meeting.
and we haven't had any raise in a number of years, and we only can afford to have Betsy at a 15-hour a week, and we can't give her a raise. We don't have any money to do that. But I'm speaking on as treasurer and also as promotions chair. And we've done a phenomenal job of promoting the downtown for Bellows Falls and getting customers in. Betsy has some statistics that shows by pings from people's phones of where the traffic is coming from. And we're getting a phenomenal number of people coming into town, and a lot of that is because of what BIFTA does with our promotions and Facebook page and website and the promotion, the programs that we do. So we'd like to be able, Betsy's doing a great job, we'd like to be able to support her, but again, we have fixed expenses plus the salary, and this would allow us to have her working with us for a little bit longer and also give her a raise. Thank you.
Any questions from the board members?
No, we'll need more detail when we get to the budget. And nobody's questioning the value of the PDA or whatever. You know, good work and the evidence and all that. I'm just saying that it's we have to ask our taxpayers to fund this, and we just need to be comfortable.
What kind of
Thank
detail do you need, Jim?
A budget, for example.
Oh, your
Yeah.
budget,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use QuickBooks, so we can.
easily, send that over. So we're not looking for additional for the end of 2023, just going into 2024.
For FY 2020.
And going forward. I'm trying to remember, this does not turn up in our social services list.
No,
The town does. This is just a separate line item.
Line
Right. Okay. Be clear. You had something, Wade.
I do, yeah. Well, you partially answered it, but I was curious exactly how long it's been at the 7,500 level.
I think at least 5.
5 or 10 years. It's been.
I mean, I've only been with the company for 2 years now, so I'm not sure.
And
But
it might have been during Mary Helen's tenure that we got a raise.
I think so. That was correct. That made sense to
But
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was there for a long time, so.
she was there for 8 years, so
Yeah,
yeah, that was.
It's been that amount since I've been.
My other question was on you kind of hinted to it a little bit, but it said you had some data from the state.
Yeah, so I just was reading this, I just received it, I can send it to you, but one thing that's really neat, and I don't know.
I was just curious if you had that, I don't need it right now, but
Like numbers,
if you had that final paragraph of that,
Mhm.
yeah,
so I can get that with the budget.
That with the
together.
budget, if you forward that to us, it'd be great. We can incorporate that with our budgeting session.
And if I could, I just want, I know it's a very small rough graph. So this is since 2017, because I wanted to see before COVID. Of course, 2019 was like our high. And then that really small dip was 2020, March, whatever. But we are almost back to 2019 and we have a lot less valleys. So it's like statistically, we're just getting busier. So pretty excited. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we'll anticipate that information so we can talk about this in the
Okay,
next budget. meeting.
thank you.
Thank you. Then we would move on to the WCOTA Trails Landowner Agreement.
So Connor's here.
Yeah.
I handed out a copy of an attachment that he's gonna speak to you from, and then there was a copy in your packet of the current agreement, and then the copy of the proposed replacement agreement. So with that as a background, I'll have Connor jump in.
Yeah, seen you a lot. I'm hoping I've got all the information that you need now. So as Scott said, there's that, new agreement as well as, this map, really briefly, the blue line that you see is the existing VYCC trail. I just included that so you get some context as to where this new trail, which is the red line, would be coming from. The Minard's Pond loop isn't mapped, which is why it's not showing the connector, but that I stopped the GPS right at where that kind of like logging road passes along the shore there. So that's where it would loop up with Minard's Pond. It's really tried to figure out how to overlay the property lines, and I just couldn't figure out how to get that data to work. But you know, it's really maybe an inch on the map of both ends, which is what's on town land. The rest is on two private landowners' property that we'd be crossing through.
And we had talked about this in the past, just for the board's recollection, about the materials being used, because part of that's a watershed protection, and Connor and I have spoken about it, so there are guidelines for that. So at most, this is a gravel, sort of very rudimentary trail.
Right.
Won't be anything that'll be paved or, have that type of a surface or impervious.
Yeah,
So that's all allowable and permissible within a watershed area, so you're not violating any of that particular covenant.
Now, the question I had is on the signature page. The landowner, is that, so in other words, would the Bellows Falls trustees be signing that as a landowner?
exactly. Yeah.
And we currently have an agreement on the blue, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that
We've already granted that blue.
Yes.
And you're extending the blue up an inch.
the blue is all existing, that red line. So the kind of like the first inch roughly of the part that's by Minard's Pond and the part that connects with the blue line. Those would be new trails that would be built on town property.
Village property.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, so happy to answer any other.
Further questions?
Were there any other changes in the text?
Yes, there was, we had a discussion about, trees, and so there was a specification around, diameter, breast height, trees that, it's, I believe it maybe said 6 inches or something.
4 inches.
4 inches, yeah, so 4 inches diameter, breast height, anything more than that, and we're not touching, we don't want to cut down trees, frankly, it's a lot of work. And,
Did you talk to the tree warden? He said he hadn't heard from you.
no, we haven't been doing any work.
Any cutting?
Right. I'm just running through my head right now. I do not believe that there are other, and then adding the parcel, the second parcel to the.
I guess a couple things. I know Chicks asked a question on who signed on behalf of the last agreement. Wendy signed on behalf, but I think we just probably gave authority to the manager to sign the agreement.
Right.
And I guess kind of the question is for the Trails Alliance, the last person that signed was the president at that time. I don't know who's authorized to sign it from your organization.
Yeah, so officially it's, we have two co-presidents, Brian and Tyrell. if we want to wait and have one of them come sign in person,
Just give me an email contact if the board wants to go forward. If they approve tonight, then we'll just send it to them, get a signature, come back, and we'll just record it. So process wise, if that's to the board's liking, we can certainly work it that way.
Thank you.
Have we notified our insurance carrier that on this, or do we need to?
Well, you
We're
have,
held harmless, but
right, you have an existing agreement, so it's really just an enhancement to the existing, but we'll certainly let them know. So,
Well, that was what I was gonna say, that, you know, this agreement, they could certainly review it for us at no cost, and just to give it a once over.
VLTC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'd be fine, because it actually is from the mountain bike
Right, River Mountain Bike Association.
of Vermont.
Yes, yeah, that's our umbrella organization.
so I think it's a pretty standard format.
Yeah. So what happens when the red line ends at Miners Pond?
So that's currently there's, right, that a trail that circles the pond that I don't believe anyone maintains, and so we would, right, we begin maintaining that. I mean, when I say maintaining, there might be a few sections of the trail that we'd want to improve, just in terms of benching or clearing it. We, when limbs came down, we would make sure that, you know, we eventually got out to clear those up. And that's really about it. Just some, you know, a small group of people that are a little bit more invested in making sure that trail kind of stays the way it is, prevents some erosion, try to reduce the amount of herd paths, right? You have one clear trail that goes around it. You have less folks kind of veering off into other directions. Yeah, there is currently one section over on like the western shore of Minard's Pond that when it's wet, it becomes pretty impassable. Yeah, so, and that's one area where we might look at like a very simple, just using either logs or using some wood to just kind of create some like
path,
duck
yeah.
paths,
Yeah.
you know, duck walks.
I got across it about a week ago.
Yeah, there you go. But you know the section now,
Oh, yeah.
in the spring where it kind of,
I did not know how much rain we get.
Very mucky.
exactly, yeah. So that's the one area that I envision, you know, we could work on doing some like larger improvements, but otherwise it's really raking, clearing. Yeah.
So is this trail gonna go around Miners Pond?
Well, so that trail already exists.
That trail already.
Oh, it already exists.
So you're looking into it.
Charlie
We're
Jerry
just-
did that
exactly.
many moons ago.
Yeah,
We would kind of adopt that and just.
An existing trail, but.
right.
Yeah,
And really, the only bad, for the most part, I mean, I don't know much about mountain bikes, but there's the spot you're talking about.
right, yeah,
Should it show? Should that show? on
Oh,
there?
we don't have a map of the existing.
It's never
trail.
been mapped.
right.
Never been
I
mapped.
think it's sort of an informal, it's almost like a logging trail.
Uh-huh.
to be honest
Does
with you.
has the village approved it?
I don't.
Know.
I've never
Not our
researched that, Jake's formally. I don't know if it was ever formally approved or if it was done informally and it's been there. I don't know.
It's been there
It would seem as though
A while.
if there's
a number of
an
years.
agreement and
It doesn't sound like there is one. It sounds like it's just,
So Charlie Jarrett
People
put that
generated.
trail in already. He just kind of went around and he followed the backside.
Well,
of the
it
pond.
encompasses that, it's, sorry,
in other words, if it's part of this system.
yeah.
it will be,
And it's on village land, so
Yeah.
it seems as though it ought to be included.
yeah.
Right, I mean, we just haven't, I mean, I would agree, the reason we haven't mapped it yet is because it's not our trail, right? We
Right.
didn't build it, so we don't wanna come here and look like we're claiming a trail yet, that we don't have permission, we didn't build that yet.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
I think, Jake, what we can do is try to do some research and see if there's anything in the clerk's records or any
Yeah.
other records that might be more formal. I'm not aware of anything and maybe,
You saying what, was it 20 years ago or so?
Probably the better part of 20 years.
Well,
yeah.
When he was on the board.
120.
Yeah.
yeah, I think he might have been village president at the time, if I remember
Do
correctly.
you know Charlie?
Oh, yeah.
So
What, that would have.
he could tell
back
you
in
the history
90s?
behind that.
Yeah, we'll do some follow-up for
Mid-nineties.
that.
Him and
Okay.
probably Ray Perry at the time was,
Okay, so it was around the 90s, and
yeah.
Stephen's saying maybe around the mid
He
90s.
established it, more so when he lived here in the village and then.
Yeah.
You know, people would just continue to use it over the years, to
to
just,
stay down, yeah.
Then we had some property that was out there, that was noises that we ended up acquiring back there in the K Hennessy days,
on the backside. of
on the backside.
Yeah. There's a little, like, it was a little piece of landlocked.
Landlocked, yes,
Thing, yeah, I remember
exactly.
that.
I think you need to write some of this stuff down. Kevin.
Yeah, because when
gotta write a
when you're
history.
gone, your
You have a
institutional knowledge will
history.
be gone.
But they'll be in the book.
It's living history,
Yeah.
oral history, right.
Well, in the meantime, further trail development will wind up helping us map what is already
I'll
there.
do some research and come back and see what we can get our hands on.
Yeah, it's kind of like that informal trail we have that's down at the Waypoint Center that heads over to the Bucket Lot, which is actually, I think it belongs to the train company.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but people cross it all the time to get into the Buckley lot and just cross over into the village property. That's kind of how they do it. And it's been there for years. People have thought about developing it as an access point for like things like activities down at the Waypoint Center and stuff, to cause another activity location as opposed to coming out and heading to towards Canal Street, so it went that way. So anyway, that's been there for a long time, and there was discussion about it, but it's never been developed. It just, of course, it probably isn't ours. We don't have permission to do it. It's been there for a long time. One of those things people start doing and don't stop.
Yeah, the railroad does not recognize adverse possession, just so that you
No,
know.
no, just because we didn't do it doesn't make it ours, yeah. We do need a motion, right, so we can
Please.
have authorize the manager to sign. So I would entertain a motion to just sign this document if we're all good with it.
Sure, I'll make the motion that the Bellows Board of Trustees sign the WCOTA Trails landowner agreement,
And authorize the manager.
and authorize the municipal manager to sign any and all necessary documents related to such.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? None. Okay, great. So Scott will take care of that.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Good night.
You too. Item number 3 is the water project update. It says updated Kissel Hill water main replacement plan.
So just a couple of things, just more for board information at this point. Remember the last time we spoke, the total project costs were $1,025,025 based on the most up-to-date engineering. That number is about $1,120,000. And we're still waiting to hear back from the state. We had proved the 5-year financing potentially, and then paying off the bonds so that we would be eligible for the grant funding. We've sent all that up to the state to find out if that's all acceptable, and we have not heard back from the drinking water revolving fund folks yet. So at this point, I'm not asking for any additional actions, just wanted to bring the board's attention that we're still waiting to hear confirmation as to if that financing plan was acceptable.
Did we vote a specific amount?
We voted up to the match,
See,
up to,
600?
6 something.
I thought up to 650.
correct, our match would be up to 650.
So we're still okay. with-
Yeah,
Yeah.
the project cost has actually just gone down slightly. I
A
just
little
wanted
bit,
you to make sure that you knew that, and that we're still waiting for final confirmation from the state. And if not, then I'll have to come back to you with some alternatives.
okay. Do you have any further questions? Then we move on to the pump house review.
I know we talk about this off and on, so I spent some time with Walter Wallace trying to come up with a couple of things. The first question was, are we eligible in any way, shape, or form for any type of historic preservation or restoration monies? And he had done some research on that and pulled up some of the back and forth that he had with folks at the state level. And basically their answer to him was, since it had been moved from its original location, it was no longer considered a historic structure based on that movement. So they have no interest or would not be able to fund any of their programs. So that sort of takes us to the second piece of this, which is the last time we took a look at the building in terms of what it might take to bring the building at least up to some, not habitable, but at least so that it was preserved. And so that's what the 2018 report is. And then there was, some list of projects. The issue that I think we've struggled with here is the fact that there's lead paint in the building. And so that's really the one issue which makes it difficult if we're trying to get volunteer labor to do the work. Because there is a lead issue, and certainly we have to do everything by the book, since we're in that watershed preservation area as well. So with all that being said, I guess the question that I wanted to present back to the board is, what do you want to do as next steps? I know we've sort of left it lingering for a period of time, and I don't know what the pleasure is at this point.
Well, I thought at some point, well, along with Mr. Wallace, that there was consideration of fundraising and volunteer work to get the work done. But of course, because of the condition, it requires a certain amount of, has legal ramifications, lead paint and so on and so forth.
Right.
It has to be done by abatement. You can't just, if it wasn't peeling and stuff, it would be able to, you could probably paint over it. With layers of latex, but at this point you can't. So I haven't heard anything back from like the preservation.
I don't think it's
committee or,
on their radar in any way, shape, or form. I could certainly ask him.
yeah, would be
to
worth a discussion.
present it to them and say, is there anything we can look at that might, might be.
I mean, we too don't want to put a lot of money into it,
No.
right?
I
Right.
mean, it's sort of like, what does it do? I mean,
Now it does
doesn't do
nothing.
anything. It was moved.
But I remember that the preservation, the CLG or whatever they call themselves these days, had consideration of putting up something like a plaque, making a focal point for Miners Pond. But you would have, wanting to fix up the building so that it was, adequate for that, and to put a plaque up that would allow some history about the pond and the house itself, because of what it serves, what purpose it served for so long.
Yeah, I think it's an interpretive piece for, the development of the Miners Pond as
Yeah.
a water source for the town.
And the building itself was iconic because it had been there so
Yeah,
long.
which I can appreciate. I think that
Yeah.
if we can, the lead piece is really the hinge, and once you get
Yeah.
beyond that, if you can fund to get that dealt with, then I would think that with trade groups and things like that,
Yeah.
maybe there's a little more
Yeah.
flexibility in getting the other stuff
I would think so. I
done
mean,
or donated or.
We definitely need their input because
Right.
it's
So, I mean,
historic.
at this point, you don't have to do it to a historic sense, right? So you don't have to get a preservation carpenter or go through any of that section 106, which
Right.
is very difficult and expensive.
Right, they don't consider it adequate now because it's been moved from its pedestal,
Right.
basically.
So
So
the biggest cost would be to get a
lead paint,
licensed painter or whatever.
Yeah.
to do the scraping with the correct abatement. And
So if we got
then-
some kind of an estimate, we could,
Do any of our local painters have that certification?
Yes.
Some do, not all though, not everybody carries that, so I'd have to do some research and see. We could certainly ask people.
Because it would
that
be good-
little
it'd be good to know
RFP
if
and
it's
see
a
if people
local-
are interested.
and see what kind, and maybe with local people, even better, that,
Come the spring, we could put something out when the weather breaks and see if we get some numbers back, at least we could talk more intelligently about it.
see what could be done as fundraising to put that together as a
Right.
piece,
I
again,
think that
yeah.
to make it meaningful, though, I think this, whether it's the historic preservation group or somebody else, this, your idea, Jeff, about making some significance of it in terms of what it represented, et cetera, so that it would be something that people could.
Well, that's built into the budget, the 2018 budget here.
Right,
Right.
Our list of,
because those numbers are gonna be on,
they're 5 years old, at least,
but yeah,
at the time it was 14,000 roughly.
right.
I'll follow up with Walter and see about some of those aspects, and then we'll put together something to have people come out and look in the spring. At least come back to the board with some numbers and see what.
I mean, right now, we know it's not being protected, I'm not sure what the roof is like and what kind of conditions it's
It'd
in.
be good.
We're not even covering it, with plastic or anything, just to keep it from getting worse, but. Yeah, so see what Walter says, and then we'll just sort them towards, because you can't do anything now, just for the spring.
Okay.
It'd be nice for it not to just cave in on itself. All right. Next item is public safety. We have an ambulance update.
So we did speak at the fire equipment committee, and certainly I can defer to Wade if he wants to update the board, but one of the items that we're still trying to track and figure out is our transition from Golden Cross, which has historically been responsible for a 2 ambulance service serving the village and town, and we can sort of go back and forth as to whether they were maintaining that level of service, because there's always been, at least from things I'm sure individual board members have heard and things that I've heard, complaints that we weren't getting that level of service on a consistent basis. So there were periods of time where we're experiencing either really long response times or instances where we have to call Walpole. And so Sean's been working with Walpole because the numbers of mutual aid calls now have reached a point of concern that it's almost 30% of their call volume is now mutual aid calls to Bellows Falls and Rockingham, which is obviously not what their ambulance service signed up to do. So it's reaching a point where we have to do some serious planning and revamping. So the idea of potentially housing at least an interim service in our firehouse for an interim period of time would be to establish a new service. And we did the RFP, we haven't been able to get anywhere with anybody offering 2 ambulances. So now we're looking at the possibility of trying to get at least an ambulance service that would be established with a crew dedicated to Rockingham and Bellows Falls, potentially using our firehouse for an interim period and then seeing how that works. Certainly for us in terms of call volumes, response times, and mutual aid, as well as for them as a provider, is it financially viable, so that we can then look to see, is there a longer term solution here? So outside of all the other things that are going on with EMS, and I'm sure you guys read the Vermont Digger and the Reformer, and you can see all the conversations going on about EMS. This is not a Bellows Falls, Rockingham problem. It's a regional problem, and it's all over the state. But it's really, in our instance, it's becoming more and more of a consideration that we're going to have to make some sort of change. So we don't have a specific plan. We've been working with the 2. Realistically, there's only 2 providers in our area, so it's either Golden Cross or Rescue Inc. And we will, at some point, get a response from both of them on a revised proposal, and then come back to the board and have a conversation as to what that might mean in terms of utilizing our space as we go forward.
Question. What did the town budget for ambulance services for 2024?
Kept it flat, kept it the same.
That's never gonna work.
Knowing that we don't have an alternate at the moment, we still have, and it's unfortunately, it's like almost a month-to-month arrangement at this point. So,
You said there's no new contract
no,
anyway, so. And you think that they will actually respond at some point to the town on those issues?
they have been negotiating and talking to us about this idea. And it sounds like no matter what happens, that the current Westminster facility is not going to continue. So, and at some point, I imagine we'll hear from Westminster too,
Yeah,
because that impacts
them as well.
them as well.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't, well, anyway, clearly, I think, well, speaking for myself, I'm certainly receptive to having our building utilized, but it's not going to be free.
No,
And,
right.
so it's, but anyway, they run their budget, we run our budget, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 concerns, right? Obviously, the level of service is a concern because we've been given notification, just to give you an example of how difficult this is becoming. The town of Springfield has sent all of their neighboring towns basically a memo, like we have our fire reimbursement. They sent us one for EMS and said that they are going to start billing for services if they have a certain criteria that they determine, that basically the reason they have to respond is that you weren't adequately staffed for your ambulance service. And then they're going to start billing towns for those responses. So this problem is just going to continue to bubble up and become more complicated and more difficult. And at some point, we're going to have to address this regionally, or maybe even at the state level. But in the interim, we're gonna have to come up with some solutions, because obviously we need EMS to serve our folks, and it's an important piece of our public safety services, so we're gonna have to have something in place. But there are no easy answers on this one.
No.
Anything else, Wade, from the meeting, or anything else you wanted to chime in with that?
That pretty much sums it up.
Okay. So we'll keep you informed, we'll keep you in the loop. Like I said, the fire equipment folks have been talking about it, we've been trying to keep the boards in the loop as well. So more to come.
And then the bills start coming. I'm assuming that they'll be billing the town when those bills come.
I would assume,
Oh, God.
it's not, yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, so Walpole has to figure out their budget for 2024 too.
Well, it's also a service level concern.
Yeah.
As well,
Uh,
right? I mean, mutual aid was established to really be a stopgap, not to be
Right, it wasn't meant to be utilized.
an everyday kind of occurrence, which is
Routine.
almost becoming.
Yeah, okay. All right, then number 5 is the proposed 2023 budget schedule. We have that from our previous meeting.
So I pulled the minutes just to make sure we were all clear as to what had taken place about voting from the floor and Australian Val and budget articles, so wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page with that, so it was voted on and did not pass.
Right,
At the last village meeting, so this one, our schedule that we had basically proposed earlier, which I had attached a copy of, is our schedule, unless you want to make any specific or particular changes with the budget calendar. This was the calendar that we were planning on following.
I don't think we had any issues with it before.
I haven't heard from anybody. I assumed we were good to go. I just wanted to make sure
Mhm.
everybody was on the same page, so.
Yes, I just want to, there it is. I understand that the annual meeting for the town is going to be down here.
Yes.
People know now that they can't take any action on budget or whatever on Zoom. They'll have to be here.
You can listen, but you cannot vote or
I
participate.
know, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking, this is not very socially distanced. And people are still concerned and wary about,
The town meeting's gonna be down.
yes,
Right now, we've noticed that if worst case scenario, if we're into a situation where we feel like it can't be held without some sort of major concern, we can always move it. The only issue there is I gotta coordinate that with, Back TV, because you
Yeah.
have to set up audio and separate
if you do, but
upstairs.
isn't Wild Goose Players have filled up that room, space up there, haven't they?
There's a stage, but you can do it without impacting the.
Okay, so, yeah, we typically didn't use the stage anyway, we would
Right, you
sit
can
down
sit in front.
in front, yeah.
So what's the reason for not being able to use it upstairs?
It was just,
Cheaper?
no, it's just headed down here.
Well, I know, but I remember last year, it seemed a little risky with concerns over COVID and stuff, and we were close, and there weren't even that many people here. If more people show up for town meeting, it's gonna get pretty full. I'm not even
Town
sure
meeting
the
usually
capacity,
draws quite a few more.
I know, what's the capacity of this room?
I believe the posted capacity of this one's like 130, something in that effect.
Sardines.
And I think
You
100
also have the school board
Yep,
there.
they go first this year or second?
Yeah, I believe they say you're to go first.
I think they should have it upstairs.
Me too, but I think it's already gone off to print, is what I heard.
Right, but it's not a big deal to move it upstairs if need be.
You just
so-
have to make notice that it's up there instead.
Right,
Just think people need the safety to spread out. That's all. I don't know, and that's my concern for us too as well. And yeah, there's a cost for having set up and stuff, of course there is. I'm sure there's been every year some amount for, Fact TV to do it up there. But I'm just bringing it up because as we move forward, what would it be like? We, usually get, I don't know, 50, 70 people maybe. Depends on how people feel about the budget.
I'm not sure how many we had last year. I don't think it was that
60
many.
or 70, wasn't it?
What's it for Village?
There were 22
22.
total on this.
Right,
Yeah, that's right. So that's what we had
right,
last year
yeah.
in person. But again,
Yeah.
people must realize, and I keep repeating this, you can't take any action on any item, on the warrant. So, unless you come to the meeting physically. So that's it. Okay, all right,
Oh, then you get other votes, so they were 117 to 23, so.
yeah,
So 5:15 is the,
But that's what people that showed up and voted.
That was the day of the.
yeah, that was the
Right.
day of the following day, well,
Right.
because the meeting is adjourned too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
so Scott,
Yes.
on this agenda, 5:15 is no longer the informational meeting, it is the village
It's
meeting.
gonna be the village meeting, right? Yeah. So that would change.
so we'll change the name to village meeting, and then there will be obviously election for,
Well, election's on the Tuesday,
correct.
right, so, oh, that's what you intended, the 16th is village, okay, village
Correct.
meeting is the 15th, those
I'll
elections. are
change it
16th.
from informational to
Right.
village meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
And I want to also add, there is a banner for the village meeting. It's at the fire station. And we can change the dates. And I know the town isn't doing it, but I really think we should do more to encourage people to attend.
Yeah,
We
Well,
could put the banner up like a week before, a week or 2 weeks before the meeting, give people plenty of time to remember, because every time you see it, you start to think about it. It's there, I'll have to ask Sean where he's got it, but we can just change the dates on it.
yeah, because if I remember right, that was a big topic of discussion last year with, you know, pull out all the stops to get people notified. I mean, so they can't, you know,
So they can't say they missed it.
so, you know, the papers, the banner.
It's hard for me to imagine if you live in Vermont any period of time, that you could miss town or village meeting.
I know, but I don't know how many people
I
have
guess
to
it
go,
is what
oh,
it
I
is.
didn't even remember that was happening. I didn't see anything
Or they
about
should
it.
Well, no, that's a different argument, but,
So how soon would we put all that on the website?
I don't know when that stuff starts showing. The village report is available 4/15, so I'm assuming, Kathleen posts that stuff
I'll start posting like the schedule and stuff.
end of
now
March,
that we're all
beginning of
good.
April.
I'll start putting some of that up, so it'll start to appear, and we'll
Yeah.
start to get some, hopefully some awareness, people participating
Yeah.
through the budget process.
And then I think a couple of weeks before the village meeting would be an appropriate time to have the banner put
I'll
out.
take care of the banner.
Okay, well, if you need material or whatever, you know, like stick on numbers for the changing date, we can do that too, so. 'Cause that will be different. But it's a vinyl banner, so.
I'll get my helper
Your helper?
Jake's cuts vinyl letters.
Ah,
to.
nice.
No, so you want it up 2 weeks prior?
I'd say 2 weeks prior would make sense. The people, the way, every time you're going through the square, you'll look at it and, you know, if you see it at least 3 times, stick some more, so.
So basically right around the 1st of May.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, and we already know, we did May 22 full vote, so we reviewed that, so we did. And that last item on the agenda is the ARPA projects preliminary list.
right, so like I said, and Deb and I have had some conversations, these are very preliminary, these projects, they have not been fully costed, so we're still working on a couple of them, but just to give some perspective, we'll still have another chance to go into this list in more detail on the 14th through your budget schedule, then again on the 14th of March. So it's plenty of opportunities to dig in and try to come up with priorities that the board would like to pursue. I put these together just from conversations that grew out of our sessions with our consultant, as well as just projects that had sort of come through conversations with just individual members.
Well,
The,
yeah, Ben, go
well,
ahead.
I think the public safety building, the Sally Port, I think that's a good idea. I also think the biosolid storage upgrade is a good idea. I think it would need to be vetted a little more in terms of the numbers.
Oh, it is, right.
The,
Yeah, we're working with engineers. Well, the architects on the Sally Port numbers, and there are engineers working on our storage proposal. So that we can get into the grant rounds. So this would really just be for a match in terms of grant. So we wouldn't have to use any ratepayer money
Right.
for that capital improvement.
I think I just want to mention that I think that Sallyport cost is too high for what it is. It's a metal structure with a roof. I know it has gates and that sort of thing, but we got into this, the town got into this when they wanted to build a salt shed, and Edward Hammond wanted to spend close to $1 million on a salt shed. There are less expensive methods. I know there's some specific companies out there. I don't know, I can't imagine buying a used one, but that price seems outrageous. It's like half of the ARPA money.
Well, that's why I think it has to be.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just, I mean, sometimes if you tell an engineer you got $400,000 to spend on something, guess what? That money is gonna be $400,000 and then some. It's not gonna be less than that.
Well, we drew some of these monies
Anticipate
just so the
costs.
board has some indication.
Right.
You know, Chester put in a pretty extensive building over and they do have a Sally Port.
That's
part
quite-
of that addition.
Yeah, that's quite a
And
building.
so
Yeah.
this is not related to their overall building, it's just related to the cost of their Sally Port.
Uh-huh.
It's basically a very simple design, but it has to have exhaust because you have vehicles in there. It has to have, you know, certain inside of, once you come into the building, there are recommendations as to how you get the prisoners to the processing areas and then into the potential areas of the cell. So it's not just looking at the, you know, some brick structure and a door. There's a little bit more involved in that.
I get that, but right now we're bringing prisoners into a side door,
Yes.
you know, so we want to make it more complicated. That's all I'm saying, is like spending more money to do that. And we're doing it this way, and we're doing it the same way for decades.
Well, in the event the board at the time or in the future doesn't like the estimate, it may not happen.
May I
Simply
have?
may not happen. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
but I mean,
So the Sally Port is in response to what? Is there
yeah,
a
why?
new need or a deficiency that we've been,
It's basically an accepted practice for the safety of officers and also prisoners, if that's the way that they recommend that you handle those types of transactions.
I'd initially had brought this into the conversation. And as Scott has stated, those are some of the reasons. Some of my other reasons were we've had at times where we did not have a secure area for a vehicle that was impounded,
Right.
et cetera. And I'm sure this could be used in an interim basis if you needed to impound something for a few days or for a period of time.
Expensive impound.
Well, it's not just,
Well, right now, they usually end up in one of the bays at the fire station.
right, but
Yeah.
having the last conversation I recall from the fire department was, that wasn't too.
Well, I mean, you make it work, do
Yeah.
whatever you gotta do, but ideally, if they had this, then.
The problem with that is when you realistically talk about impounding, it really is not a secure location to have it.
Right, exactly.
People have access.
Right, yeah,
Unfortunately, things happen. It's not
Right.
great.
but do we have a greater, I guess criminally, we have a greater need than we have had in the past?
Well, I would say that
Or
based on when that building was built, the types of crimes that are occurring, you see more and more things seized in the requirements of bringing more people in that aren't cooperative. So there are definitely more people that are uncooperative than are
Okay, so
cooperative.
this is a lot different than just having a place to impound a car.
Oh, yeah, well, my
Oh, yeah.
additional,
The other thing is, it wouldn't have to, like, nights like last night or the night before,
right,
you don't have to have a cruiser sitting out in the parking lot running for 8 hours.
right,
Right, because you have it under
You
a
can
port.
bring it inside and shut it off.
yeah.
And Jimmy Smith, who works on the cruisers, like he said many times, and I mean, even some of the officers, you know, it's not the mileage usually, it's
The runtime.
it's the hour
Yeah,
time that
runtime.
they idle.
Yeah.
You were
So-
saying, you were saying.
Because literally, that,
Yeah.
you know, a night like tonight, oftentimes they're, even when they're sitting around, the vehicles, they're idling,
Yeah,
they're running.
I guess in reading this list and considering, there's just so many things that we can possibly spend the money on. So coming up with a prioritization and then looking at, I mean, the whole premise behind ARPA funds, my understanding was to respond to conditions that were caused by COVID. Right?
Well,
I think
To aid in the recovery from the effects of
they made those,
COVID-19.
I think, Jeff, they expanded the scope of what the uses of these funds are so broadly that I think that got lost.
Totally lost that, yeah.
And I'm just saying that, you know, we have a huge responsibility, the five of us, to be
Yeah.
able to vote on
Yeah.
the use of this one-time fund. And
Yeah, I doubt we'll ever see $800,000 in federal funds with no
Again.
strings attached.
We won't.
Yeah,
Not in our lifetime.
Which puts a huge amount of responsibility on our laps to really look at what the long-term impact is of the things that we
Yeah.
choose to do. So I think for me, it would be helpful to understand how either something written, and maybe that's gonna be developed as this goes on, how each one of these things impacts,
Right.
the community and meets the purpose of the.
Some of them came out, remember, we had those sessions where
Yeah.
the public came, like the boiler for Gross was a big part of that discussion. It was one of the more highly rated items. The pickleball thing is really more in relationship to just, there's a lot of conversation about seniors and opportunities, recreational opportunities for seniors and what could we do? And, we really haven't developed, if you think about it, we have not developed any senior-related recreational opportunities except for trails in the village. We've done pump tracks, which are great for kids and younger people, but in terms of true senior recreation, less and less people are playing tennis. Certainly the basketball courts are getting used less and less. It's an opportunity maybe to look at an investment on something that might draw, a different segment of the population into an activity that
Right.
is really becoming a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, participating in that exercise where we're coming up with the priorities, we were all in separate groups, so,
right,
we
not
only,
together.
not together, so there are only a few things that I heard about from this list, and then there are other things, and I look at what thing, if we look back in 10 years, can we say that money is still having an impact and a return for what we
On
spent
investment,
it
yeah.
on? So whether it's efficiency improvements, IT stuff that's just not working, stuff that when it comes down to spending taxpayers' dollars may not be so sexy, so it won't get funded.
Well,
And now we have an opportunity to use money to fund the things that, I guess part of the fear is spending money on infrastructure that's gonna have an ongoing maintenance when we have so much that we have to maintain that we haven't.
well, yeah, and I agree, but I also, when you look at this, it's because the 880,000 is deep pockets, but I mean, not, in my opinion, not all of this necessarily falls into the auspices of the village of
No, we
Bellows
certainly
Falls.
don't. From your standpoint, Jeff, the only item on this list that would qualify would really be the biosolid storage upgrade. Because it has to do with, handling waste
When
and
you
one of
say
the things
qualify.
qualified under like COVID losses and that sort of thing, because there's always concerns about testing solids to make, biohazard material, and make sure that there's no COVID bioproducts and that sort of thing. This list was not developed by us. This was developed by
Right.
staff. A couple of things. Number one, I had a conversation with the Sax River Chair. They've already allocated their money, at least 90 to 95% of it
Right.
has already been allocated to specific things. One of those is a new chassis for a vehicle they're repairing, or their fire vehicles, and some software repair. That's the majority of their money. Although they received the smallest share, between the.
Well, they got a
three.
Ferrari here.
Yes, Parada share, their share is the smallest. I also had, so there's that, so they are not participating in any of these items here. I talked to someone else who said that the person whose name I won't mention, who handles GRAS, GRAS, has stated sometime at the early fall, they had already received the grant money.
No, I can tell you because I have an update and I'd be happy to share with the
Please.
board. The funding stack for the Gross biomass boiler system, total project cost is $1,887,000. Right, they currently have, out of that $1,887,000, dedicated funding, so that has been secured. Northern Borders Regional Commission funding of $817,908. Vermont Capital Improvement, so CIP grant of $72,054. a wood waste heat grant of $60,000 and an EVT grant, which I don't know what that, I think it's an Efficiency Vermont grant, 50,000. They still have 887,000 pending of that 1,887,000, and that would be CDBG monies, which they won't know anything about until June. That's the next funding cycle for CDBG. Our 100,000, which again is a pending item for discussion. A loan from USDA of 200,000, and then the Ross board would be responsible for fundraising of almost 88,000 to finish the project.
Okay. Well, my concern with that one is it is a privately owned business. It does fund the community, that's true. But the entire community is not contributing to it. I don't know if the town has allocated any funding. Saxons River hasn't allocated any funding. So I have concerns about participation, although the entire community benefits from that particular unit, not the whole building specifically, but definitely the clinic, which is Springfield Hospital. And I don't know why they haven't taken care of that part, but because it's probably because of the building itself, which isn't theirs. I have concerns over the tennis court being changed to a pickleball court, which is fine if the town wants to participate in that, but we own the land. Our agreement is we get $1 a year and we pay for the water, we pay for the sewer. And when there were problems with the water system in the pool, we paid a significant amount of money for water to get that repaired. If the town wants to change the tennis court and basketball court or whatever into a pickleball court, then let them. But I don't believe the village should necessarily participate in it. We don't own the business. We just own the land. The Sally Port is sort of new. We've talked about it, but never put it on the ARPA fund list. Adams Grist Mill, again, does not belong to the village. It is part of the, is owned by a nonprofit historic society. I don't know if the town is participating in any of that. I haven't heard anything that they've solidified anything. And the last one is the biosolids storage upgrade, which is something we do need. So that at this point is the only one that I would agree to participate in. And of course, my thinking had been, and I know we did this for the whole community event issue, but there are a lot of individual projects which we could provide small amounts of seed capital to help them get what you call that funding stack for the things they want to get done. I'm assuming that the town is just going to spend their money on the train station, but I don't know. I haven't heard a dedicated list of things. In our case, we have some infrastructure stuff that really would give us 50, 70, 80 years of furtherance and move us forward and get us off the grid and do all that. No one wants to hear me keep talking about solar and improving our footprint and getting us off of fossil fuels. But to me, those two systems that we have are the best bet for the money, for the majority of that funding. And that's my say, and the board will have to vote, and we'll have to have majority on any items we decide to spend the ARPA funding on, but we will be running out of time if we don't find agreements to at least earmark the money and know that that is what we're going to do when we have to have the last word. So.
Well, I think that what this says to me is that if the five of us have other ideas, they ought to get added to this list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this one has money attached to it, but that's not the critical amount. I mean, obviously, when you mention solar, you're talking major bucks, and but I don't know what a number would be.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got the first, number one is, I agree with you, we need to make a decision on these things. Number two, we need to add to this list. I think it's a good list. Like Deb, a couple of them don't have much weight with me, but for example, that building on the hill, the former hospital, the clinic, is, when I think of our population, that's a critical service. Our population would be really hard pressed if that were to go away. And so we understand why Springfield Hospital is not going to put in a boiler because it's not their building. And but certainly that project is very, very important to this village. But I do think we need to, if anybody wants to add something to this list, I've got nothing to add to it, but, and I think the Sallyport, the reason I mentioned that earlier was just Jeff, what you said is that, you know, we've talked about Sallyports now. I've been on the board for a few years. It's come up each year it seems to come up. And this is like found money. And my feeling is that's kind of what I would use this kind of money for, a project that I would like to have, but wouldn't ask the taxpayers to fund directly. And I do think that there's, both in terms of the safety of everybody, particularly our officers, the issues with running vehicles all the time and this and that, I think it has merit, but it's got a high price tag, and it would take up a good chunk of this funding, so.
I think all of these have clear merit. I think that for me and for the community, I think that having them fleshed out with some information, I looked at Sallyport and I think, you know, or questions I would have is there an ongoing expense that we need to anticipate? What might that be? You know, you've got more square footage, you're gonna have some maintenance. What is that maintenance? You know,
Yeah,
cleaning, any of that sort of stuff, because you spend the money and now you've got something new that's gonna be a budget item versus something that either provides revenue or lowers cost. So, you know, and you look at.
Yeah, that's not going to do that.
No, and I agree.
Well,
You
it
know,
will extend the life of the vehicles. I think I would argue that without the Sallyport, our vehicle replacement will continue with the.
Yeah, but you can put up a Quonset hut and spend a few $100 and still get the same, that benefit, that particular benefit. Sallyport is a totally different animal, which could provide some of that, but as an additional expenses because of what it is, which is not just a storage location for vehicles, to be able to vent. I mean, again, you put up something that's metal and, you know, and it has open side, well, it's gonna be protecting it from the weather, but it'll still be able to exhaust itself, so the exhaust will go out. That's different than a Sallyport. It's totally different.
I don't even know what the hell a Sallyport is, but I think.
I looked them up online and tried to get some pricing, but I couldn't get anything. They just went, oh, like, send me your
this
information.
is gonna be attached to the building,
It
right?
will come
Oh,
up.
yeah. They'll be incorporated into the building.
Yeah, part of the
And
structure.
that adds to the cost.
Right.
But then think about the fact that that building is in severe need of some other things. I
Yeah,
mean, it
but
was
so much
built,
of our,
the building itself is not a great building. It's like the high school needing a lot of work. And it's gonna go on needing more work. It was built in what, 1980 or 1970?
Wow,
The public safety building.
1983.
Okay.
Well, I hate to chime in on that, but listen to the Vermont Public Radio and going back and forth to work in the last couple of weeks. There's some talk about some legislation where farmers and others would have to keep track of how much water they use in Vermont. And I'm thinking, Paul hit it on the head while he was here a couple of times before. And I don't know if he's going to your school board meetings, but the amount of water that they use up to the high
Well,
school.
that's ridiculous. I know.
Yeah.
Not like I haven't said anything about it.
So that's,
Yeah, I know.
no, I think they're good projects. I just think that we should make sure that we're all
he initially has,
considering them with as much information as we
Yeah.
can have.
Mhm.
And the
We
list
do,
doesn't-
like I said, we do have this back on your budget agenda for the 14th of February and again on the 14th of March. So I guess my ask of the board is if there are other items that we need to flesh out,
well,
now's the
We need to
time.
send them in.
well, what happened to the first time we sent them in? Because I know
We
I
did.
submitted some, other members submitted some.
Well, we
Could you
did,
sum
we
that up?
submitted them for that stuff.
Right.
Yes, and they pretty much disappeared.
Well,
I'll go back and go through the
I'm
command
not-
report.
yeah,
We could resend.
I'm not knocking the group, but I mean,
Some of these came directly out of some of
Yeah.
the conversation.
So just resend them
Right.
and as soon as possible.
I mean, I think this board has more intimate knowledge on some of the workings and maintaining of what we're charged with maintaining budget wise and otherwise.
Mhm.
Although I like everybody's input, I think we're looking at it, or some of us looking at it differently compared to somebody wanting a pickleball court.
I'd like to know what it is the town is participating their money in, because,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
would
the
be,
town pays for the ambulance, why don't they participate in the boiler funding if that's the desire, is, because it's service, it's, health services for the community. The pickle court, they handle the rec center. And you know what I've already said about the way that's being handled as it is, not happy with it, haven't been happy in years.
Who
And
does
then
own the
Chris-
building up there?
I don't know who does the maintenance, I have no idea.
Who owns it?
The town owns the
The town
rec
owns it?
center.
Not the rec center, I'm talking about the, Groff.
Grass, of that owned by Regional Air, what is it, Greater Regional
Area
Rock
Services.
Area Service.
503C.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So, and then we have the grist mill is a property of the Historic Society.
So if we make a contribution, is there any
Well, the
financial
town's putting
benefit?
money into a lot of historic preservation, they're putting money into the strengthening of this roof, so it could potentially
Right, read
create a
that.
new membrane and also potentially be available for solar.
Mhm.
We're putting money into the train station acquisition project.
Yeah,
We're putting money into the meeting house renovation based on the structural, report that they received. And then helping to help match the Save America's Treasures grant.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are, and I think there's one other one that I can't draw a blank on it.
And I know I've mentioned it before here, a couple of people chuckled, but we've got something that's, I think, and we were approached by a couple of communities back in the earlier days. I refer back to the Kay Hennessy days because it gives me the time frame about purchasing some of our water out of the pond. So I've got this great idea that we make another department selling bottled water, and we could call it pond water. And I think, we'd be something to be profitable.
Maybe we could put it in that building up there.
That kind of small building.
It's kind of small, but
We can
yeah.
add
I
on.
have to add on.
You gotta sell
Now
hot
you
water
need
from
addition.
somewhere, might as well
There
sell
goes
it
the
out of
money.
there.
Now you did.
But we had been approached by, I think, one or two communities, one out of Massachusetts, and I don't remember the details, and I thought, gee, Pond Road, Miners Pond, pond
Pond
water.
water.
Yeah. It's catchy, and you can sell it, because water sells.
I hadn't figured that one.
High in magnesium.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
No, there's a lot, that water's a lot clearer now.
Good for you. I am mineral, yeah, very natural.
If we recycled the water from wastewater treatment plant, that water could be used for the high school to water their lawns.
Well, that's true too, yeah.
Great water.
It's safe, and we still we still get the money revenue through that process as opposed to through drinkable potable water, but,
Give me a one.
yeah, so skipping along, again, so I guess my last question is the town participating in the grass boiler funding stack?
No.
No, they are not.
Not
That's
as it's
what-
currently proposed.
Okay, all right, so that answers my question. All right, if we're all done with this, if you have anything else that you want to send to Scott or to be added to this list, please do so as soon as you can, because our next meeting will be, our budget meeting will be the 14th. I know that there is, if there's participation, there's to be any mutual participation by any of the entities, both villages and town, we should do that at the joint board meeting.
Certainly, that would be the point for conversation.
Yep.
I did not have it on the agenda, but that's.
But you could add, I mean, stuff to the 31st, yeah.
What's that one, Bill?
If we have, if the three entities, both villages and town, want to participate in any commingling of ARPA funds, like into this particular,
Like grass.
yeah, like grass, if we all want to contribute something, let's have that discussion on the 31st.
So I thought you just mentioned Saxon River
Isn't,
earmarks, all their
I
money.
don't know if they have, well, about 95% of it.
Like 50,000 left.
So there's that, there's a possibility with that, and some of that stuff could be used to sprinkle here, there, wherever they want to.
And
So we might have that conversation on the joint board.
let me
See
ask
if
you
that's,
for
if there's a desire
point
to
of
do that.
information, I understand that Saxon River is no longer covering Brookline, Grafton is that accurate?
Oh, Athens,
Athens, I'm sorry.
I guess they didn't like the number
Correct.
Saxon River had, so.
Okay.
So it's no longer them, okay. All right. So now we can move on, review agenda items for the next meeting, which is February 14th, our first,
So we'll have the auditors, we'll start the
Yeah.
budget process.
Yeah. we'll also have, so we'll have budget numbers, and we should have the beginning of that'll be the first meeting in the month, our regular financials, right?
Yeah, we will also have the auditor will be here to go through the audit
Yep,
as well.
will we have the manager's report along with that, or will we have their letter?
I don't know if he'll have his full manager's letter, but when he did the town, he did not have the full audit available, he just had an annotated audit. So I'm hoping he'll have the full audit done. 'cause I
Yeah.
asked him that.
Well, I mean, it's always important to see the letter, we've had
Right.
years where we've had to see it much later. Okay, anything else that would go on that anyone can think of for the next board meeting? What we're gonna do our first budget.
For the financials, probably, we'll have.
Yep, financials, we'll have the auditors, our options will be back on there again. And the water fund,
Chocolate,
yeah. Review agenda items for the joint board meeting, which are January 31st. What do we have on there?
So we're gonna have a host of things relating to fire and fire equipment, some updated information from the last conversation, so we'll have that on there. We do have an update on our tax sale, which is now being scheduled, so we do have an updated list that we go through. We have, I think Ridwick has asked to do an updated presentation, so we'll probably have that at the beginning of the meeting. Couple other items that I already had written out on the agenda as well, and I'll add ARPA to that list. So I think
I've
there's
got
6 or 8 items.
I've got some,
Okay,
I read in the paper that the Rockingham budget is going to include monies to provide policing
yep,
in rural Rockingham. Okay,
2 hours a week.
There's an article to offer, or to have the sheriff do a contract for some services in Little Rockingham.
and I think that, I'm not trying to get the business for the Bellows Falls Police Department. That's not my point. My point is that I'm getting the impression that the Rockingham board, as it's currently
Composed,
composed, is treating Bellows Falls as, that's our issue. Bellows Falls, we got the Bellows Falls trustees and their budget. They're responsible for Bellows Falls. We're responsible for Rockingham. And, you know, if, as Rockingham board members, select board members, Bellows Falls is part of Rockingham. We have a tremendous policing issue, so much so that we have a police force. And I think that the idea, and I believe Saxon's River has a small budget that they,
They have some
Employee.
contract with the
They
sheriff.
do, yeah.
so my feeling is that for the select board to come up with a proposal whereby Bellows Falls taxpayers are going to be asked to contribute to provide policing for rural Rockingham, when they have abjectly rejected any kind of merger proposal in the past because they didn't want to pay for policing.
That was always a big stuff.
that's right.
That was,
Yeah.
that was it. I mean, they always the fire department too, but that's a different situation now. So I don't think it's appropriate or fair to either Rockingham or either Bellows Falls or Saxon's River for our select board to recommend policing, that we contribute to policing in rural Rockingham. If they want to somehow provide policing to rural Rockingham, let them charge that amount to the people that live in rural Rockingham. Let it be their right.
It's, we already understand that the reason that this was all brought up and added was because of one particular neighborhood with approximately 100 people in it. That
Well,
are,
let them pay for it.
well,
I mean,
and you can state all that at the annual meeting too, to
but I
reject
think
that
we need to,
piece.
we need to take it up with the select board at our joint meeting because it's not fair. It's absolutely not fair.
Well, so
Yeah.
technically, I'm paying for police protection for, albeit a small contract, but still, it's just the idea that
We're paying,
paying twice.
we're paying as much as the people in rural Rockingham are paying. More, because there's more of us, but
Yeah.
we're, for every penny that they pay, we pay a penny.
Uh-huh,
It's not, it's
so
just not right.
it's double, I get that.
And,
Well, that coupled with the fact that in years past, they have chosen not
They
to
don't want anything to do
want anything
with,
to do with police
No.
protection from Bellows.
No, and no, it was an out and out, very loud no.
oh, it's a very large, no, and I can understand that.
The problem is they have passed their budget. And the only thing we can do is to complain about it at an annual meeting, but it won't drop it because we can ask to reduce the budget by $6,000. If that passes, they rearrange, you know how it works. Rearrange the budget, they spend it wherever they want, which will include the $6,000.
Well, it's not as an article. It's not in
It's a
there.
separate article?
Correct.
Yes,
Oh, that's good.
for how much?
I want them to explain to the residents of Bellows Falls and Saxon River why they're asking us to pay for this cost.
Yeah. Well,
Right, it's a good point.
That it ought to be, if those folks there want some police protection, I can understand why they would want it.
hopefully they
Let 'em
have a
pay
good
for it.
explanation.
Pretty simple.
So should that be on the joint board meeting?
Yeah,
Did you want to talk about it on the
yeah, I
31st?
want, I
I
want
think
them,
police services is an item just for general conversation.
Sure, let's have it. Thanks, Jim. Good. Anything else that you
Be spirit.
kind of covered it? so.
Hmm.
We need to review, approve orders, bills and warrants. Need a motion
Motion to approve the orders, bills and warrants.
and a second?
So,
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, other business. Scott,
No, all set.
wait,
yeah, I just had a,
full sentence piece of paper.
two quick things. Somebody asked me about asked me, told I pass along. Were you going in at a Rite Aid up here?
Yeah.
Not Rite Aid,
Yeah.
Walgreens.
Walgreens.
The bushes, the shrubs, and the shrubbery that you gotta really nose out into the,
Oh, yeah,
on both the in and out or whatever.
can't see around it.
That they need to be, I don't know who does that or how we handle something like that, but. So anyway, I
Zoning.
experiment, I talked to this person talked to me and I actually took a look at it and it is a little,
it's hairy.
it is, you have a point.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, I don't know what the specific zoning regulations for that sort of thing are, because of where they're set back, who owns them, it's not,
you know,
they're within the right of way, I think, so that might, but they're not covered by the tree warden because that's a bush.
I told them to call
They
you.
shouldn't have put them there.
All right,
They just need to be trimmed.
I know, but I don't know who.
They shouldn't be there at all.
Who's the
Anyway,
person?
When you're in the car, they're right in your.
Your line of sight.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
So you have no assured clear distance when you pull in.
Yeah, you pull out and somebody can come walking up and there's also.
I don't know why they were approved there.
Well, true, but even if I get that, but even if they were trimmed, that would be helpful.
Yes, of
So you
course,
could kind of see
but
better.
who's the
I don't know.
contact?
I told them I'd pass it
We'll
along
look
and
into it.
Yeah,
I asked them-
still, usually the zoning administrator would talk to somebody about their trimming of bushes and stuff like that, so.
I asked them to call you, did you? Apparently they didn't get a call.
They haven't called, no. No, they wanted to tell you and then you didn't deal with it.
I know, but I always
You're the
tell,
telephone.
I know, but I tell them to call the manager's office.
Yeah,
and
I've
speak
not
to
heard from
somebody.
anybody, but I'll look into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
please.
The other thing, I just
Yeah.
wanted to, publicly thank the neighboring fire departments that assisted Bellows Falls with the fire the other night on Center Street.
Yeah.
Everything went good and nobody got hurt. and Everybody
Good save all in all, yes.
James,
I'm good, thank you.
second. And
All set, thank you.
I wanted to say, I had asked this question, why we have no longer gotten our call logs from the police and fire department. It's not just because we had a changeover of dispatcher, but also we're not getting them from the fire either. And it's the only thing we do get to look at to see how they're performing. And this citizens ask us questions about, what we're doing, and it'd be nice to know what we're doing as much as we can. So, I'd like that to start again. That's kind of a comment to see whether that happens or not. I don't think there's anything else. We're gonna have another snowstorm. I want everyone to be safe. Stay home if you can. Or travel as little as possible, at least, and go early, because it's just gonna get worse all day. I was expecting an inch, but now they're saying it's It's like 98% chance of snow, so
We're gonna get some snow.
you gotta get,
Gotta
we
get
gotta cram it all in 1 week in January, that's what we're
Done by morning though.
gonna do.
Right?
So is it into Thursday, right?
It's
So
in Thursday morning.
After 5 p.m.
Gonna start Wednesday
tomorrow,
afternoon, and go into the morning,
into the morning, so,
yeah.
so travel's gonna be tricky.
Last time I checked NOAA, they were predicting, I think, 5 to 7 between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning, 1 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Yeah, there'll be a measurable amount of snow.
And if it changes to water, then the temperatures
Oh,
drop
because the
like
rain,
they're
they're talking
talking
about some
on
rain too.
Friday, going to single digits maybe.
And a nice hard freeze.
That's a hard
Nice.
freeze, yep.
So that'll make it
There'll
even.
be a lot of weight on roofs too.
So, do what
It's
you
winter,
can
so
to
just
avoid
be
the,
prepared,
avoid the
right.
weather, but I know that sometimes you just don't have any choice.
Yeah.
My people have to go out, if 3 Mountain Power's going out, we're out. And there's no way around it. And then we're sitting for hours and hours at a time in the garage because when they need us, they need us. They don't wait for us to wanna wait for us to get there. They just want us to be there, but, so we're insurance of our own kind. But, yeah, try to be safe, stay home if you can. Make sure you've got snow tires and keep an extra blanket in the car, just in case. I think that's everything. We do not need an executive session. What's that thinking? Oh, remember at 5:30, we will be having an abatement hearing. I believe anyone who hasn't gotten
When is
themselves,
that?
that's 5:30 on the 31st.
Oh, I didn't see it.
On the 31st, it's a half an hour early, so anyone, is that a village property? That's village, I think. Village and town, so anyone who's a JP or a trustee or a select board member.
Are we starting at 6?
Then our joint board is scheduled to
6.
start at 6.
Okay.
VC will be 5:30 and
At
regular
5:30.
board at 6.
Yeah, there's only one item on the agenda,
Correct.
for the abatement. And also, if you haven't gotten sworn in, if you have not gotten sworn in as a JP,
Right.
Kathleen said she would be, I believe that she's gonna be here to
Right.
cover anybody who didn't finish. Didn't get sworn in. I've done that already, so,
Well, how late is she in the office during the day?
well, until what, 4:35, 4:30, I think,
4:30.
so.
But you can certainly get done in that night.
Yeah, and anybody who still wants to pull a petition for any town position, I think it's the 30th. Monday afternoon, the 30th. That's still open. All right, I think that's everything, and I need a motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Second.
Okay, whatever, pick one. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And don't think anyone has to stay, and good night.